Why the guy they jump like this now? This kind of thing happened yesterday for this place. I don't know what is going on. All of us won't buy finish. I be waiting now. I don't just understand what thing they go on at all. Bros, how you can't reason the matter now? The thing tire me. I don't know what to do again. I tire like this. How everybody they do this kind of thing? You dey get me? Wetin dey go on now? Wetin dey go on? Now like this we go dey. I no just know. Now like this we go dey. Now like this we go dey continue to dey happen. You know supposed to dey be like this now. The thing don't tire me. We cannot continue like this. Because if we continue like this, we go finish. We're not supposed to be like this at all. I don't even know where to think again. Please, I no just know. Waiting they go on. Oga, I'm tired. I don't know what to say. Please, I'm tired. Let something should be done. So that we'll know how we go to follow things. I beg. Please.
Well, hello everybody. My name is Fumi Inyonda, and this is Public Eye. Today's conversation is going to be about mental health. Well, once upon a time, it was said over and over again that Nigerians were the happiest people on earth, that in fact, Nigerians are so resilient that if you push them against the wall, we will burrow through the wall and come out on the other side bright and smiley. Well, recently, reports in the newspapers, in churches, in other platforms have shown a higher rate of not only suicide, but anxiety disorder, drug abuse, and so on and so forth. What has become of the happiest people on earth, especially in a world post-COVID? Well, we're not even post-COVID, we're right in the middle of it, but in a world that will come after COVID and the pandemic and the difficulties that has ensued, how will people cope? This is a conversation where we sit with each other and determine if this is a rich people's problem, poor people's problem, young people's problem, old people's problem, or all people's problem. I invite you to take a break with us. When we come back from the break, we will start the conversation. Right, welcome back. Public Eye it is. Do you know once upon a time, you would say in Nigeria that Nigerians could not be depressed. If you were depressed, you were stigmatized. In fact, if you had any mental health challenges, you were stigmatized. Well, recently the statistics show that not only are over 7 million Nigerians reportedly suffering from depression, after the outbreak of COVID, the statistics has gone from 24% of the population to 40% of the population, mostly young people. That's a major, major crisis on our hands. And we're going to start this conversation this day with somebody who's been brave enough to come forward and talk about his mental health challenges, especially being a person who is in the public eye, something that ordinarily would be a no-no. It's my pleasure to welcome into the studio Michael Ejoor. You know him on television. He's a television, film, and theater actor who since 2016 has been on so many shows, you know, that I couldn't possibly count them here. You know him, of course, perhaps on Tinsel, which is Africa's longest running soap. Michael, how are you?
I'm very good.
Very, very good. I mean, when I see you, I just see you as a star, and I want an autograph. That's all I think, that I want an autograph.
You're the star. I'm honored to be here.
You know, how is it when you have to present a face to the world, but you're dealing with, you're dealing with things and emotions that tells you, I don't even want to be in that world?
I guess sometimes it's not as hard because I'm an actor. So I slate in my head sometimes. So before, I'm my own director. So I say action, so that I can present a different front to the world than how I feel on the inside. So sometimes I'm acting before I even need to act.
Right.
So,
I
yeah.
wanted to ask you that question because lots of people suffer and they would hesitate to talk about their suffering. So even though everybody is not an actor, many people are acting their
Yeah.
state.
Yeah.
Tell me what happened with you. At what point did you realize, okay, I can't do this? What caused your depression to start with?
I think I've been dealing with depression, diagnosed since 2011. So a decade. But if we had to trace back to the roots, it is over 2 decades. Between the ages of 9 and 13, I went through a series of very traumatic experiences that sort of began to shape my mental health into what it eventually became. And sometimes I look back and I think, maybe if I didn't suppress, I wasn't told you're a man, don't feel, don't do this, don't do that, and, the stigma that you earlier spoken about in Africa, maybe it wouldn't have gotten as bad as it did eventually. So yeah, that's the root of it.
How bad did it get?
It got really bad. I started cussing myself. I attempted to take my own life twice. Well, 3 times, but the first one was such a rookie mistake. I can't even count it. So yes, twice.
How old were you the first time you tried?
Oh, the very first time I was 14, but I there was no know-how. I'm not going to go into certain things, so I don't encourage
Other
people,
yeah.
But let's just say it was very sloppy and it was silly, But at the age of 23, yes, that was the real attempt, and I had to be rushed. I was rushed to the ER, and about 40 pills were pumped from my stomach, and I actually saw the lights, and I thought that was just something that people said in movies, but it wasn't. So, but I'm quite glad that from 23 to now I'm 33.
You don't look it.
I don't look it.
No.
Thank you. I feel like I look like a granddad. Yes, so between then and now, I haven't, attempted to take my life. This being said, doesn't mean that it's been easy. As a matter of fact, I probably had one of my biggest depression bouts in December, ever. And it was hard to deal with because I'm no longer on antidepressants. And so it was literally just me and my therapist having to work through it. But
So tell me about the journey to seeking help, to realizing, to being a child, and you started as a child wanting to take your own life.
yeah.
And to going from that to doing something about it. Tell me that journey. I don't want to preempt how it happened.
Like I said, it all started when I was very young. I just knew I was very unhappy. And I remember I used to say it all the time. And, when I became a teenager, my mom was concerned because I would alienate myself. I wouldn't mix. I would want to sleep endless hours. I wouldn't want to complete tasks, and because I was quite brilliant, I don't know where my brain went to, but I used to be very, very brilliant. So it was kind of like a cause of concern because, I just didn't feel like exerting myself anymore. And I had no idea what was going on. I just thought, okay, this is what life is. Life isn't necessarily happy. It's just going through it, through the motions. And silence makes it worse. silence really does make it worse. So if you're someone dealing with depression or whatever, speak up. Sorosoke is too important.
Yeah, good speaker. You know, I mean, what you said now is important because there's also like that bit of chin up, man up, carry on, life is what it is. When did you decide to speak up? What made you speak up?
Well, I remember I had just finished university. I just finished my first degree. And I studied in the UK and I came back to Nigeria to do NYSC. And I really wanted to go back. I didn't, I guess everyone has withdrawal symptoms. I lived there for almost a decade. So, I was like, oh, I really want to go back. I really want to go back. But I started having palpitations. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I was very anxious. It's just very distorted. I'd never had these it was just the minor sort of symptom here and there. But, I was quite erratic, in my behavior. I was snapping. I was, then I started cutting myself and it became, it was a lot. I remember the scar that I have right here, I cut myself too deep. The intention wasn't to kill myself. It's just, every time I saw blood, it sort of explained the pain that I felt, because I didn't understand why am I feeling internal pain? There's nothing wrong with me inside, so I needed to see something that explained the pain. So I started cutting myself. It became a bit too much. I started drinking too much. I would go through loads of alcohol in a day, and then I started dabbling in a bit of crack. So then I said, okay, there's something wrong here. This is not who you are, and I decided to seek help. And that's when I was diagnosed and then I got on antidepressants.
How did you seek help? Where did you find help?
To a doctor friend, actually. He said, okay, I need to put you on citalopram.
And because there's also a lot of stigma about taking antidepressants. It's kind of like, oh, you make it worse or, But I wanted also to talk about the choice to speak about it publicly also.
Okay.
Because it's one thing to admit it to yourself, which is the most important step, and to seek help. It's another thing to talk about it in an environment where you will be judged. You might be judged for it, especially being a big strapping man who was also, in an industry where happy people reside.
Yeah.
So why did you talk about it publicly?
I literally sat down and said to myself, I asked myself, why did all of this happen? Like, what's the reason? Like, I'm a Christian, so I was praying and I said to God, I was like, explain it. Why is it happening? And I think it gets a bit worse because I'm going to praise myself small for me. Don't be angry. I don't think I'm ugly. I'm talented. I'm smart. I graduated with a first-class degree. I grew up with a certain level of privilege. So it doesn't, with the path that it seemed like I was heading on, it didn't make any sense to be battling with depression. And sometimes I would feel worse because I would ask myself, why are you depressed given this, and this? And it didn't make any sense. And that's when it hits me that it is an all people problem. And if you don't say something about it, people could be dying in silence. So I said to myself, you can't go through all of this for no reason. Say something. Speak up about how you're feeling on the inside. And it started with just speaking to one or two people. And then I did a public forum in church. And now I'm more open to talk about it because, like you said, there's a rise. Dele or Deji recently broke me when I heard that he took his life.
Yeah.
And I feel like if he knew that someone else was going through it, you don't feel as alone. So, yeah.
I mean, when you talked about it, what was the reaction you got originally, publicly?
Yeah, well, firstly, I remember telling someone, I didn't even start speaking, and I noticed that she would not necessarily feel comfortable anymore if I was alone with her children. And it's fine, I felt a bit weird because I'm depressed, I'm not crazy, So, but I don't know what impression she had of people suffering from depression. So sometimes it's met with, okay, does this mean that you are going to either kill yourself or you're going to run mad but I feel some people are becoming more enlightened.
Right. One of the things I say in Nigeria now is, where does the pain go? There's so much pain flying around us, either directly at us or indirectly at us. Where does the pain go? So I'm concerned, and I will ask a professional about the persons who don't have access, who is not urban, who does not have, where should they go, in that regard. But, I thank you for your bravery. What's next for you? How do you... I'm going to ask a question. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? I'm going to have to ask you.
Okay. The thing is, I do believe you can be all right. I think I'm all right. I look all right. Huh?
Yes.
Yeah. So you can be all right. You really can. You, just like anything else, my mom has been living with diabetes for 26 years. There's management. Same way there's management here. There are some people who had no idea and would watch this and be like, but he's so happy, and that's because of proper management. So I believe I'm going to manage myself, and you're going to see a lot more of me on the big screen, on Netflix, and the rest of it. So I'm going to become a household name. So in 5 years, maybe we'll be doing a different sort of interview.
Sure, yeah,
5 years.
at that time.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. I want the people in the audience to be able to ask you questions.
Okay.
Because sometimes when you see somebody else, then it triggers something in you. So go on.
Thank you very much. My name is Chike. I have a question and a suggestion. Now, the question is, can drug or drug abuse trigger mental illness? That is one. Then secondly, from the statistics you gave, mental illness is a silent killer, and I think the media has a huge role to play, in sensitizing the public, so that we won't think it's village people that is that are behind your problem and all that. So we need more sensitization, so that we know that it's actually a silent killer. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Adibimpe. My question is to Mike. How do you help someone that refuses to identify with their issue? Like, you can see the person isn't as enthusiastic as they used to be. There's even a little bit of OCD in there, but the person just refuses to get help.
Thank you. So, Michael, that's a lot on your plate. There's one that's on my plate, but the first one about drug abuse, that's a very important question, because many people think that people have mental health challenges only because they've been abusing drugs.
Firstly, disclaimer, I'm not a medical professional, so just experiences. Not all people who suffer mental illness had it stemmed from drug abuse, but drug abuse has been linked to mental illness. I'll use my uncle in the African sense, so not necessarily my dad's brother. He abused a lot of marijuana, and he then ended up suffering psychosis. So I guess studies have linked it, but not all mental illness stems from it.
Right. This is a question I'm saving for when the experts come also, because which comes first, chicken or egg, people seem to ask. And, we'll leave that question till later. You will also ask an important question about the media, because everything that happens here is the village people. Yeah. And a lot of our media is also about, just that kind of rather loose-handed handling of complex and nuanced stories in a dismissive way, So I understand what you're saying. But do you think the media contributes?
I feel like, yes, it does. And I feel like the media also is probably the strongest tool in terms of raising awareness. So I'm open to a lot more scripts about, drug abuse, depression, mental illness, things like that. I'm pretty more open to scripts about societal issues, because this is one of the easiest ways to pass across a message to the grassroots level of things.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah. I suppose that also leads to the quality of writing and
Yeah.
the minds of the people writing, the kinds of research that goes in. Because a lot of those stories that you see, even the so-called juju stories, you know, it could be completely written a different way. So that you see that that person is like dreams.
Yeah.
Dreams are not something that somebody has sent you. It's your own mind processing things, you know, and that can be positioned completely different. So I see what you're saying. The media has a role to play in putting things in perspective better and also sensitizing people much better. Finally, Bimpe was raising a question about what if a person doesn't want to accept help or doesn't want to accept...
That is a very tricky one, because if you don't accept, it's so hard to help. It's very hard. You have to acknowledge. That is the first thing you need to do. So I think that might be one for a professional, because for me, the only way to move past this is acceptance.
Yeah.
So unless you get the person committed,
Yeah.
which is against their will.
Yeah. Bimpe, you raised a really good issue, because also on the back of it is the families dealing with
Yeah.
somebody who has mental health issues.
yeah.
What the effect of it also is on them. You know,
I feel like that is a totally different public eye episode.
Yes.
Families of people dealing with mental illness.
Yes, absolutely. I wanted to say to you, Michael, thank you.
Thank you.
You know, thank you for surviving, you know, and for coming out and talking about it. Or later on in the show, we're going to give you the resources to utilize should you need, after watching this show, to see someone, to talk to someone, to seek help. And also for those who are dealing with family or friends or loved ones who are, you know, having these difficulties, what to do. Because at the end of the day, actually, in a society, in the world we are living in after COVID, and I keep saying after COVID, we still are in it.
COVID, yeah.
The consequences of the shutdown of businesses, of the shutdown of nations, of, you know, the enforcement of people into small, tiny spaces is going to come out further down the line. For Nigeria, we deal with many, many issues, from economic to socio-political, that perhaps causes trauma.
Yeah.
You know, another part of the conversation is, how do we stop hurting one another? You know, how do we become better human beings so we don't trigger circumstances that create those difficulties? I'm not an expert, but you will get the expert, I promise you. Let's go on a break. Right, public eye it is, and now it's time to start talking to the experts. And I'm going to start with my first one. She does not like to be called a doctor, but I will introduce her properly. Dr. Amanda Heme. She's a Lagos-based psychotherapist and the founder of Edet Health. I would also like to tell you that she has her first degree in psychology from the University of Cape Coast and a master's degree in abnormal and clinical psychology from Swansea University. She specializes in helping individuals living with depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, childhood trauma, and existential crisis, so that they can understand and heal themselves. Hello, Amanda.
Hello for me.
I know you don't want to be called a doctor, but I will try not to call you a doctor.
Thank you.
That's why I did all of that. So everybody knows that I'm talking to an expert
Yes.
who would be able to help. I'm going to start this way. I was watching something recently. It was some series on TV, and the man who had been jailed for 12 years he didn't commit the crime he committed, you know, and he was in jail for, took 12 years to be able to get himself free. And he was doing something. He was doing a series called, you know, The World's Worst Prisons, you know, had something along those lines. Okay. And he went into a criminal facility, one of the toughest prisons in the world. And the criminal there, the hardened criminal there, turned and looked at him and said, "You were 12 years. Where does the pain go?" And I started thinking about Nigeria. And I was thinking about Nigeria from the Civil War to Fulani crisis, to Ogoni crisis, to do you want to name it? You know, what has happened to the happiest people on earth?
Are we really the happiest people on earth, or do we pretend to be the happiest people on earth because we choose to deny our problems and not confront them and face them. I recently read a Quora question that said, a person put up a question and said, are these facts true? They say that Nigerians are the happiest people in the world, the same statement you made. And somebody answered and said that the reason why people believe that is because mental health issues and mental illnesses are underreported here in the country. So because of that, there is this perception that people here are not mentally ill because we don't have the data to back it up to say these are the issues and the problems that they are facing. So I don't think that Nigerians are the happiest people in the world because genuinely, the things that make you happy, we don't seem to possess them. We just use joy and happiness as a coping mechanism. So what you're using to cope does not mean that that's exactly how you feel.
That's worrisome.
It is very.
Because, I mean, what do you see around in Nigeria? I mean, not even in your clinical practice yet.
Yeah.
But when you look around, what are the signs that show us that we have a problem?
Anger, a lot of anger, suppressed anger, transferred anger, violence as a part of our culture, narcissism as a part of our culture, poor interpersonal relationships between spouses, friends, family dynamics, especially with family dynamics, very unhealthy, manipulative, controlling. People are not allowed to freely express themselves, to go towards the things that make them happy. There's a lot of restriction in terms of how we can be and how we can feel. And then when you now think about the political atmosphere and economic atmosphere here, a lot of people, more and more every day, are falling down below poverty line. People can't earn money to feed themselves, clothe themselves, to do things that make them feel happy. I don't think every Nigerian wants to be a millionaire. They just want to be comfortable, to be able to have access to water, to food, to light, to good roads and good care in terms of mental health and physical health. And some of us don't have those basic human amenities. So even our association with each other, the jobs we go to, people that abuse at their workplaces, the relationship they have with their colleagues are healthy, they don't know how to do their jobs well, they're not being guided properly, they're not being compensated well, they don't feel safe. The security crisis that we have from the Fulani headsmen to the NSAS protest, when you have issues, who are you going to report to? No one can protect you, defend you, because even the people that are assigned that role are the people abusing you. So when you look at all these parameters, it's like, what then is making you happy? What do you have to be happy about? When you think about being a Nigerian, are you genuinely happy?
Okay, Amanda, that analysis, which I cannot flaw, just makes me want to cry. I like that you have layered it from the family.
Yeah.
Where you spoke about suppression and repression, and then how it comes into the socioeconomics, and how people cannot pursue what we call the pursuit of happiness becomes even harder. Mm-hmm. I want to start from the family. Why are we like that? Why are we repressive? Why are we suppressive?
I feel like a lot of Nigerian family systems and the culture of parenting and raising kids is heavily flawed and is filled with a lot of trauma. Trauma that was not properly dealt with, trauma that was not properly healed, that has now informed the way that we raise our kids. So you think about parents who were raised during the Biafran War and how they raise their children now comes from a place of anxiety, this fear of anything can happen. We need to make sure you're safe and secure. And that anxiety then manifests as control. So it's a lot of different things that have just sort of come together to now inform the way that we run our families. And even our culture as Nigerians, as Africans, within our tribes, the expectations we have of the male child, of the female child, how they should be, the roles that they should play, all of that contributes to how we then raise our kids and how our kids then become who they are. So the culture says, oh, a woman should be this way, look this way, dress this way, navigate the world this way. And if you happen to deviate from that conservative path, you're labeled a problem child or a rebel or somebody who doesn't want to conform, and that can get you probably removed from your family dynamic, you get shamed, abused for it, and you may not get the help you need to deal with that trauma. You end up having kids and you pass it on. So,
I mean, the next conversation we're going to have is with somebody from an institution, a government institution. So we can actually talk about even data and statistics and what facilities there are on a large scale.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking, because there were questions earlier, the first part, which we have to ask you, and there will be other questions, which I want to get to. I'm now thinking, but what does a person do as a Nigerian? You know,
To
what
cope?
does a person, in the first instance, how do you know that I need help?
Yeah.
What in yourself, and I'm conscious to say yourself because I don't even know, okay, what should a person do? How does a person know that, okay, I need help? And how does others know my loved one needs help?
So I think some things that you can look out for is the mood of the person. When I find that people here in Nigeria, when people want to know that their loved one is not okay, it's isolation and anger. They start to act out and they start to isolate themselves. So if you notice that someone you love or you care about is spending a lot of time just by themselves, avoiding relationships, communication, they don't go out as much, and this is outside the lockdown and COVID restrictions, they're just on their own a lot. You'd need to ask them, like, is everything okay? If they're not opening up to you, if you notice that they're sad all the time, and when they talk to you, they speak from a place of hopelessness and helplessness, like, what is the point of life? Why am I even here? What is the purpose of living anyway? Why should we even continue? Nothing matters. Words like that could let you know that, okay, maybe this person might be struggling. And even just looking at their relationships, how is their romantic relationship going? Are they happy in it? Their friendships, do they have friends? What kind of friends do they have? Are they happy with their friendships? Do they look like they have a support system that's good for them? Can they communicate their feelings? If they're upset, can they tell you that they're upset without raising their voice, insulting you or bringing you down or shaming themselves? Are they kind of people that if you tell them that they've done something wrong, they don't know how to take criticism very well? So the way they respond to their environment and they react is also something to look out for. Are they angry all the time? Are they sad all the time? Are they eating well? Are they eating too little? Are they eating too much? Are they sleeping well? Are they sleeping too little or are they sleeping too much? Are they workaholics? Because some of us tend to hide our misery by going to work. And we just say, we're workaholics. But when you look at it, we're using work as a way of escaping the troubles that we're facing.
Yeah.
Ask about their financial situation. Do they have enough money to be able to do the things that they want to do? Do they have money to pay for their health bills, to feed themselves, to pay their rent? So when you sit with them and really talk to them and reflect with them on their life situation, and you can tell from these markers that there are areas where they are not satisfied, then you should tell them to go get help.
Right. I think it was Bimpe who said, what if a person doesn't want to be helped? You know, what if the loved one who doesn't want to accept and who's not ready?
You know, that's a question that people ask me a lot. And even as a therapist, I've had to face that, where people come to seek treatment and they say they want to get help, but the truth is that they're not willing and they're not ready. Because healing, whether it's depression, anxiety, whatever, delusional disorders, eating disorders, neurodevelopmental, whatever challenge you're facing, there has to be that desire to get better and to take responsibility for yourself. And not everyone is willing and ready because it's hard. Healing is hard. It's really hard work. And I tell my clients this from the beginning of therapy. It requires changes that even you yourself may not be ready to make.
Why is that change? Why is that hard work necessary? You know, you could just maybe continue coping by eating yourself to, you know, using
Using drugs, right?
drugs. Or, you know, in a society like this, what's the point of healing when everybody else know well self?
Because you, even if the society is disordered, you still have the ability to make yourself better. It is possible to live with some kind of sanity in a disordered world. And you owe it to yourself to do that for yourself. Even if everyone is crazy, don't allow yourself to now fall into the craziness. Because the thing about it is that you either do the hard work of getting better in therapy, or you do the hard work of using drugs and having to cope with the consequences of that. Either ways, effort is being exerted. It's like saying, just because you're not making a decision does not mean that a decision isn't being made. Because you're coasting doesn't mean things aren't happening. Life is still moving. So if you decide to come for therapy and get better, that's a good use of your effort. If you decide not to, you're not using your effort to get better, you're just using it to stay in the situation that you're in. So it's just a matter of deciding, where do I want to put my attention, my focus, my time, my energy in? Do I want to focus it on learning how to cope in this disordered world and live some kind of happy, wholesome life? Or do I just want to continue to feel miserable and wake up unhappy and want to check out and not even be able to appreciate those little moments of gratitude that life offers us?
I don't want to be dismissive.
Yeah.
There are different Nigerias. So oftentimes we hear, okay, you can go here, but where can people go? You know, oftentimes people just go to church, or they go to their imams, or they go to whatever religious leaders they subscribe to.
Yes.
You know,
I think that the first thing with knowing where to go to is a destigmatization of the places where you have to go to. Nigerians have a poor health behavior. So when it comes to going to hospitals, they're averse to it. People don't even want to go for general, full physical health checkups because they're afraid. I've told people, like, when was the last time you had a full physical health checkup? They're like, they don't want to go to the hospital so someone will not find out and tell them that there's something wrong with them. They'd rather stay in that place of ignorance until the thing becomes so serious that they can't avoid it. So making those places where you need to go to get help less scary is a good step for people to know that you can go here. Yaba Neuropsychiatric is there. You can easily walk in there and get help. If you go into a hospital, inquire if they are associated or affiliated with a psychiatrist or any psychiatric facility. There are mental health care, primary care hospital facilities in the States that you can go to ask about psychiatric evaluation and help. And you can even seek the help of private therapists like my practice and so many other upcoming therapists. There are therapists that you can access through Instagram, Twitter. It's as simple as going on Google and saying, find therapists in Lagos, find therapists in Nigeria, and Google will give you an array of different places where you can get help.
right. Well, thank you. My time's up. You know, I'll talk to the people on, well, some more people.
Sure.
When you mentioned Twitter, I was going to say, is that not a coping mechanism too?
For some people it is. A place to vent and rant and share their opinions, an outlet for them to express themselves. So yes, for some it's a coping mechanism.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I'm going to take a break. Thank you, Amanda.
Very well.
We're going to take a break and then we'll go on to talk to the government end because it's very important you made that point, that there are hospitals and lots of the treatments are actually free or almost free in those government hospitals right after the break.
It takes a lot to disturb a Nigerian, given our setting. Stress is a daily part of life. Traffic, abuse. You know, given the way the world is and the general standard, I believe most Nigerians fall under people that have kind of a mental issue.
Like, I was always angry. I was angry at everything. My parents probably just thought, what's wrong with this girl? I'm just going through this puberty stage, sorry. Like, why are you always mad? Dad even said to me when they was like, you better stop this, if not you grow into an angry woman. And that kind of like just, would I say turn off or turn on a switch in my head, because then I thought, really, if I just like, if this depressive state actually gets me to kill myself, probably they'll mourn me for 2 days and everything goes back to normal.
God bless you, said some, because there are many. One, the difficult economic system in Nigeria is a major fundamental pivotal factor that has contributed to mental breakdown. For instance, there's many things on our head now, but we can't think straight. Because we're thinking, I don't know what we'll eat in the evening, what we'll eat tomorrow. And the economic is not helping us. And to make it worse, for instance, you go to some places, what people spend money. You go to ask, what's my salary? My salary in 2 years cannot be spent like this. So there are many things you see around yourself. The societal influence, economic hardship, bad governance, how to worsen it, bad company.
Right. Public it is. It's very interesting watching just even the faces of the people. My next guest is Dr. Bassey Edet. Dr. Edet is a chief consultant psychiatrist and psychotherapist. He's the medical director at the Federal Neuropsychiatric Hospital in Calabar. That is the oldest neuropsychiatric hospital in Nigeria. He's a fellow of national... I cannot start reading all his qualifications, but suffice to say, he's the right person to have this next set of conversation with. Hello, Dr. Edet.
Good afternoon, madam.
Good afternoon. Thank you for coming all the way from Calabar. And we will talk later about your hospital, because your hospital was vandalized. I saw you crying on social media. Your hospital was vandalized during the NSAS protests. I'm sorry about that.
Thank you.
And that will bring me to the situation where I want to take this from. There's a lot of anger in the land. NSAS itself was an eruption of anger from the people. Why are Nigerians so angry?
Well, there are many, it's multifactorial. First of all, the system of governance in the country is part of it, but it's also ventilation. There's so many things, like trauma, upbringing. We have been more or less post the Civil War. The country has been more increasingly militarized. From the Civil War, we entered a long spate of military intervention, and increasingly there's been the boot order structure. And then you now transit into democratic experience, which is not really, it is a civilian regime, but it's not really as democratic as you get. The engagement is a problem. So you have several factors. You have governance issues. You have the fact that values have been eroded. So what would happen 25 years ago, there are certain social structures that were buffers, the extended family system. It doesn't exist. The welfare system, for example, the healthcare and educational systems have virtually, if not for this COVID, the healthcare system was at the brink of collapse in terms of investments. For you to make the healthcare work, it needs not just millions, it needs sustained investment over time. And what do people really want? Good healthcare, good education, good roads, simple things. So when you have that construct, and then the trauma, individual, societal, it's multifactorial. And Nigeria is in a difficult situation. It's a mono economy, so it has very few growth opportunities in terms of revenue. So everything just came to a head with NSAS. But I think the greatest thing was that there was a disconnect for me. I mulled over it. There was a huge disconnect between the state and the people leading it.
So earlier we were talking with Dr. Amanda, and she was talking about, what resources are available for people. I'm thinking, what resources? I know there's a Yaba Psychiatric Hospital. I know the one in Aro, and I know the Calabar one. I know of no other one. I don't know how many of those there are. I don't know how much percolation it is into primary health care, so that people, you've spoken about the advocacy angle, she spoke about it earlier, where, people have to actually learn what the issues are, but where do people go when they need help? Well, where should people go? Where can they go?
They are
officially.
They are
especially poorer people.
In every region, every region has a psychiatric hospital. There's Benin, there's Sokoto, there is Kaduna. Okay, so there's Enugu, there's Calabar. Every region has the federal neuropsychiatric hospital. The government in its planning did that. So those serve as tertiary healthcare systems. In every teaching hospital, there's a department of psychiatry. But when you look at all the beds together, they're not up to 1,000 beds. And look, they're above 1,000 beds, but you're looking at a population that is in, I think the 180 million is an underestimate, closer to 200. The mental health needs are closer to 2 million. People would have active mental health issues would be 2.5 to 10 million people active.
My statistics say that, and you're talking about active mental health challenge, because yes. I have a statistic here that says that there are 7 million Nigerians who have depression.
If 20% of the population is depressed, statistics are varied, depending on the methodology.
My statistics says that before COVID, it was 24%. Yeah. With COVID, it's 40%.
Okay, so that's another issue we have to discuss, because investment in mental health is not in the finery of a building. It's in data gathering. Every country that invests in data has what to plow back in resources. So if we had a mental health survey that is nationwide, sponsored by whoever, you have a more qualitative appreciation of the age, the types of trauma, the issues there. There was a study done in 2004, 2005, I was a part of that study, National Mental Health Survey. After the study, we need to have something else that builds on that. So we're talking about that scale of research that now percolates. It will identify the germane needs. Already we have the resources, but what we've not done very well, and we also in the public sector have to do more work, is bringing the people to the service or bring the service to the people. It's two ways. So a lot of us run community mental health. We do that in our state. But we are talking about primary health care. A lot of the states also have to buy in because the federal institutions cannot drive certain programs without the state buying. So I'm talking more segmentation of the health resources. But the greater problem is the appreciation of mental health as a priority.
Has there been a recent change in attitude or will towards funding mental health?
I think COVID was the best crisis that happened to the health sector. My personal take on it. It's a crisis that we are making the best use of. There's been some investment in physical structures, but the mental health bit has not risen because we as Africans like physical structures. So if I told you that I did a survey and I surveyed 5,000 people, you say, what is that one? But if I pointed to a building of this magnitude, you are more likely to be, taken by that. So what we appeal for is more funding, not in terms of cash, but just more awareness. Okay, we don't care who does it, just do this. Whether it's a private or government initiative, just do this, give us data on these things, so that data now informs planning. It's not been as good as we want.
I'm looking at this on two angles, so I'm looking at, as an institution, what needs to be done. I'm also looking at people who want to access what might be available.
Okay.
You said now that, every area has, like the psychiatric units,
Yeah.
The hospitals have, how easy is it to get help?
Well, for me, I was a past secretary of Association of Psychiatrists, and we pulled together a directory of all public and private facilities. We had planned to put on our website. I have to be sure of that, but that's part of what we need to do. So if you go to Google Association of Psychiatrists in Nigeria, check for how to access a facility. You will see it on that website. That was the thinking then. I'll have to check on that, but that was our first plan. The second plan was now identifying all private facilities. If you had a relative who had mental health challenges and you are presumably in the middle class income group, you'd want the person to access service facilities where it's nearer home, so you could take a private facility. So we wanted to put that out in an identifiable form. That is access. Those are the things about when it's policy, that those things are registered and everybody knows that there's some form of regulation to it. That's accessing care. There's some form of regulation of those who are therapists. A lot of people who claim to be therapists have not gone through structured training. They just find that somebody wakes up in the morning, has a life experience, and says, now he's a therapist. So we need to look at all those things and then regulate them.
The wealth of a nation is really the quality of the people. It is not the material in the ground. The material in the ground can be ignored, wasted, or whatever if the people are not well. And emotional health actually drives everything else, We don't seem to understand it. I mean, am I talking?
Yeah, you're making absolute sense. You're talking, that's what we call mental capital. For example, what you have is mental capital. Setting up this is mental capital. The Nigerian space must be creative enough to allow people to express themselves. Part of what is leading to this outlet of anger. That is mental capital. When you value innovation, when you value expression, even if it's different from yours, that's part of the national psyche that we should begin to have.
I need to take a break. When I come on the break, we're going to take a few quick questions, and we're going to have to let you go because we have a lot to think about from this show. We're after the break. Right. I'm going to take a few quick questions for Dr. Edet, and I'm going to start with the lady at the back. You can take off your mask and tell us your name, and then ask your question or make a comment.
Okay, my name is Iwundumasnachi Mary. Now my question is to Mr. Dr. Edet. Please, like you rightly said, most times when we talk about depression and mental health, we trace it only to the adults. But looking deep inside, we notice that the teenagers suffers it mostly. But what makes theirs worse is that they can't even express it. They can't voice it out. Unlike we adults, that most times we voice out, express it, relate it to people. And especially when you are engaged in community development, where you are exposed to teenagers, and you are not a professional in the field, most of them open up to you. But due to you are not experienced in that field, how best can you help these children? And secondly, we are in the era of technology. I'm talking about an important topic like this. How best can we use technology to solve such problem? Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Zainab. My question is, people get depressed, but they don't know the cause of their depression. Like, how best can you know the cause of depression? Like, at times you might just feel like, okay, I don't know, I'm just sad. Like, since the past few days I've been sad. You thinking back to some other stuff that have happened, you be like, okay, that one is settled already. Like, you don't know why there's this sadness in you. And so how can you, it's when you know why you are sad that you'll be able to fix it, to solve it. So how best can you know the cause of that depression? And can depression be fully solved? Because
And depression what?
be fully cured, be fully solved.
Okay. Right, doctor, there's some good questions there for you.
Very good.
Children, teenagers.
Yeah.
What are the resources? How do you know? How do you help?
Oh, well, there's a lot of resources in the country. There's a subspecialty called child research psychiatry in Nigeria. It's been growing. Incidentally, the current president of that, she's an associate professor in Luth. So her name is Yewande Oshodi, Professor Yewande Oshodi.
Professor Yewande Oshodi.
Yes,
Yeah.
very easy resource to get. I think part of what is happening is that there is an increased awareness. Adolescent depression can be treated, and it's better picked up and referred to because it's untoward. If you treat early, the child can go on and function normally. If we miss it, it affects school performance, affects engagement in relationships. All those things are deteriorating effects if you don't treat early are there.
Yeah.
So if you can identify that, find resources. As I told you, every teaching hospital has a psychiatrist. The way the government is structured now, we try to have.
So you're saying that for her, for example, as a community worker who encounters it in teenagers and children,
Yes.
she should refer them.
Yes, you should just say, look, go to a psychiatric department, not even a hospital, in Luth, for example. Now, Lagos State uniquely has hired 5 psychiatrists in their general hospital. So they have a community mental health program that from the primary health care, they can screen and refer.
Right.
So 5 specialists within the healthcare system of Lagos State, and then they have lawsuits where the Department of Psychiatry.
Okay.
Let me take because I need to actually enjoy the question. So she said the second thing is that equipping. Equipping is part of what we should be doing more. We are doing that, but I think we need to come out more. There have been several trainings. I just think that the space is so huge that we do with part of what the Child and Adolescent Mental Health subspecialty does is that they do a lot of community awareness programs and they train a lot of people to come on board so that that resource is more accessible. With your interest, there's a training program in University of Ibadan where you can get resources for Department of Psychiatry, Child and Adolescent Mental Health, where you can get resources to equip yourself to be better positioned to help people. So that's one. There's also some resources here at Yaba Psychiatric Hospital. There's a Department of Child and Adolescent Mental Health you can access. Those are resources standalone available. You don't need to just walk in and ask for a child and adolescent psychiatrist. Just say the psychiatrist that does children, and they will direct you. So resources are available. It's just that the connect between us, because government doesn't really do much of that, but they expect you to walk into services. So that's what we need to do more of. The resources they are bound.
Right. So, for example, even people who are like counselors and all of that
They should
can train.
Yes, you can adhere to support and refer.
Support, yeah.
There are things that they can do at that level, and then they can channel the baseline things, psychological first aid, listen, support, and
Right. The other question is, can it be?
Yeah. There's mild, moderate, and severe depression. Depending on when you make a diagnosis of it, you can treat and it resolves. You can treat and it can be a chronic, like you have diabetes, hypertension, and it can be managed. You need to have treatment. It doesn't stop you from functioning. So depression can be treated.
Yeah, so as you said, is there a level where it can never be treated?
When you have a psychotic features, it can be treated, but you have to have maybe more frequent hospitalizations.
Right.
Those are the issues.
Can it be, she said, can it be tying somebody down?
Oh, well, it affects
home trouble. No.
Home trouble.
The person is tied down. Can it be something like that?
You know, that question is very tricky because it goes into the sphere of the metaphysical. And some people believe that there is a home missile holding down, the drone is holding down on them. And that could be a bi-directional thing. Our belief systems, our illness are spiritual in attribution. 85% of the people here, in fact, I have a lot of graduates who, even my colleagues, who think that, Bassey, this is home trouble. And I said, may you not have home trouble. So, but a lot of it is treatable. Like you have old women who...
So what you're saying is that when you believe this kind of thing, you can manifest it. That's what you're saying, or what? Because we need to be clear. People get confused about this and it muddles the water.
To be blunt with you, a lot of the things that they believe are home trouble is not.
Not home trouble. Mm-hmm.
A lot of it is just organic illnesses. I'll give an example. A woman has depression in the elderly. She manifests with symptoms of catastrophe. She begins to manifest with symptoms that are so bad that she thinks she killed her children, she thinks she did this, and people will call her a witch, and they murder her. Meanwhile, if you treat her for depression, she'll find out that those were just negative features of depression.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Well, I'm told that we are time up. All the resources you have mentioned, we are going to collect off you and put them on our site too and on our social media so that people can access them. The conversation will continue because given the state of things in Nigeria, obviously mental health should be declared as a crisis, a health crisis. This is my opinion. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll see you again on something else, in the near future.
Thank you very much.
All right. Well, everybody, I hope that you benefited from today's show. It's a show that's one of those shows that will sink into us slowly because this is about human capital. And the wealth of a nation is about the human capital that she has. Public eye it is. Remember what we say. Watch yourself. We're also watching you. We'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.